It's funny how desperation can make you ignore every red flag. 3 weeks ago, I was jobless, broke, and living in my car. The economy was brutal, and so was sleeping in the backseat of a 2008 Corolla in the middle of November. I was scanning the classifieds at a diner in some dusty town off Route 17 when I saw the ad. Night receptionist needed, Whispering Pines Motel. Housing provided. Immediate start. No experience necessary. Too good to be true? Of course. But when your choices are between freezing to death or answering a sketchy job posting, you don't hesitate. I called the number. A calm, almost soothing voice answered. The man introduced himself as Mr. Hayward, the manager of Whispering Pines. He didn't ask for references, didn't even want to meet first. He just said, "Be here by sundown. Room 1 is yours." Whispering Pines Motel was hidden deep in the woods, about 10 miles off the main road. My GPS lost signal a mile in. As I drove down the narrow gravel path flanked by towering pine trees, something in my gut twisted. It felt like the forest swallowed sound, no wind, no birds, just silence. The motel emerged like a fossil from another era. The wooden sign creaked in the breeze, paint peeling and barely legible. 7 rooms, all single-story, lined up beside a tiny office. Faded green doors. Dim yellow lights flickered above each room. I parked in front of the office. A man stepped out as if he'd been waiting for me. Mr. Hayward was tall and skeletal, dressed in a crisp white shirt that looked ironed but smelled faintly of mildew. His hair was thin and slicked back, skin pale as paper. "Welcome to Whispering Pines," he said, handing me a single brass key. "Room 1 as promised. We're glad to have you." He gestured toward the office. "Come inside. There are a few things you need to understand." The office smelled like mothballs and old smoke. A dusty lamp illuminated the front desk, a wall of keys and an ancient register. Mr. Hayward pulled out a small laminated card from a drawer and slid it toward me. The rules were printed in bold red letters. Do not answer Room 3's phone, no matter how many times it rings. Room 6 is permanently vacant. If you see someone enter or exit, report to me immediately. Never let guests check in after midnight. Turn them away, no exceptions. The housekeeper visits at 2:13 a.m. sharp. Do not speak to her. Do not open the door. Keep the lobby light on. Always. If it flickers, call me immediately. Don't leave the motel grounds between midnight and 4 a.m. If you hear tapping on the lobby window, ignore it. Do not look. I let out a short laugh, expecting him to smile, maybe crack a joke. You didn't? These rules are not suggestions, Mr. Hayward said, dead serious. Break them and you may not make it through the night. I tried to ask what the hell this was, some kind of twisted hazing or initiation, but he was already walking toward the door. I'll be gone tonight. The guests are quiet. You won't need to interact much, he added, glancing back. Just follow the rules, Mr. Blake. And just like that, he disappeared into the darkness. Room 1 was nothing special. Linoleum floor, a sagging twin bed, a small TV with rabbit ears. But it had heat, a working shower, and a clean mattress. After weeks of back pain from sleeping in my car, it felt like a 5-star resort. I tried to rationalize the rules. Maybe Room 3 had a broken phone line. Maybe Room 6 was under renovation. Maybe the housekeeper was just some overworked cleaner who didn't like small talk. There had to be logical explanations. I told myself this wasn't forever. Just a few weeks until I saved enough to move on. Then the phone rang. It was 11:47 p.m. I was behind the front desk, flipping through an old National Geographic when the sharp, shrill ring made me jump. I looked down. The call was coming from Room 3. My eyes drifted to the laminated card pinned to the wall. Do not answer Room 3's phone, no matter how many times it rings. I stared at the receiver as it continued to ring, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Something about the sound crawled under my skin, like it wasn't just a phone call but a summons. It rang 37 times before it stopped. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a prank call from a previous guest. Maybe it was old wiring. I reminded myself the place looked like it hadn't been updated since the 70s. I returned to the desk and sat back down. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps at the front window. I froze. The window behind the desk had yellowed blinds drawn shut. My blood ran cold as I remembered rule number 7. If you hear tapping on the lobby window, ignore it. Do not look. Tap, tap, tap. I held my breath. It wasn't loud, not aggressive. It was almost polite. But that made it worse. Something was trying to appear harmless, inviting even. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just counted the seconds. 30, 60, 90. The tapping stopped. I exhaled slowly, heart pounding in my chest like a drumline. 12:06 a.m. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. From the corner of my eye, I saw the hallway light flicker. The lobby light. Rule number 5, keep the lobby light on. Always. If it flickers, call me immediately. I grabbed the motel phone and dialed Mr. Hayward's number. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. The light flickered again, then dimmed, then flickered back to full. I stared at it, unsure if I should run outside, scream, hide. Every instinct said to get the hell out, but then I remembered rule number 6. Don't leave the motel grounds between midnight and 4 a.m. I was trapped. 1:58 a.m. The air turned icy. I wrapped my coat tighter, teeth chattering. The heater was on, but I could see my breath. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate, heel-to-toe steps echoing down the hallway. I peeked around the corner. A figure in an old-fashioned maid uniform was walking past the guest rooms. She moved like she was gliding, head bowed, arms limp at her sides. Rule number 4. The housekeeper visits at 2:13 a.m. sharp. Do not speak to her. Do not open the door. The clock hit 2:13 a.m. She stopped at the lobby door. Then she knocked, once, and waited. Another knock. Then silence. My breath hitched as her shadow lingered beneath the door. A low whisper seemed to drift through the cracks, not words but something like humming. The air grew heavier, denser, until it felt like my lungs were filling with smoke. I didn't move. After a full minute, she turned and vanished down the hall. By 3 a.m., I was sitting on the floor behind the desk, arms wrapped around my knees, waiting for the sun. At exactly 4:01 a.m., the tension broke. The lights stopped flickering. The air warmed. The silence lifted. I crawled to my room and collapsed. I woke around noon to the sound of Mr. Hayward knocking on the door. He smiled when I opened it like nothing unusual had happened. You made it through your first night. Congratulations, he said, handing me a paper bag. Breakfast. I stared at him, unsure whether to scream or thank him. He must have read my expression. Tonight will be easier, he added with a calm smile. You'll get used to the rules. I took the bag and watched him walk away. I knew one thing as I shut the door behind me. I should have left the moment that phone rang. I didn't sleep the rest of the day. The second I shut my eyes, I saw her. That housekeeper. The way she floated more than walked. The way her head twitched ever so slightly toward me when she stood on the other side of the lobby door. The sound, low, humming like an old lullaby being played backward. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, my stomach untouched despite the breakfast Mr. Hayward brought. Cold eggs, gray sausage, and a slice of toast so dry it crumbled like ash when I touched it. The bag still sat on the nightstand. As the afternoon light began to fade and the shadows crept up the walls of room 1, a chill settled over my skin. The air had that strange, damp motel scent, a mix of bleach and mildew with something older underneath, something like rot. By 5 p.m., I sat behind the front desk again, staring at the rules taped to the wall, trying to convince myself I'd hallucinated everything. Maybe I was sleep-deprived. Maybe the forest air was messing with my head. People get paranoid in isolation, right? But when 11:47 p.m. came and room 3's phone rang again, just like last night, I knew it wasn't a dream. I didn't touch it. It rang and rang and rang. 42 times before it stopped. I didn't even breathe until silence returned. At 12:06 a.m., the tapping on the window started. Same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. I squeezed my eyes shut and counted. 100 seconds. 200. At some point, I think I dozed off or blacked out for a minute, because when I opened my eyes again, the tapping was gone. Then something new. At 12:37 a.m., I saw the door to room 6 open. There wasn't a sound. It just creaked open slowly like someone was waiting for me to notice. I stood up behind the desk and stared at it through the front window. No one came out. No one went in. I waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Still, the door remained open. I picked up the motel phone and dialed Mr. Hayward. For the first time, he answered on the first ring. Room 6 just opened, I whispered. There was a pause. Did you see anyone? No. Then don't go near it, he said flatly. Just keep your distance and keep watching. If anyone comes out or goes in, call me again. Do not attempt to close the door. He hung up without another word. I stared out the window. Nothing changed. Until 12:49 a.m. That's when something stepped into the doorway. At first, it looked like a man, tall, wearing what seemed like a suit, though the details were blurry in the dark. But as it moved, I realized something was off. It wasn't walking. It was sliding forward like it was on wheels or maybe gliding the way the housekeeper did. I blinked. It was suddenly 10 feet closer. I gasped and stumbled backward. Another blink. Closer. The face, if it had one, was hidden beneath a shadow so deep I couldn't even make out the shape of its head. But it looked at me. I could feel it, hot pressure in my chest like its gaze was pushing down on my lungs. I ran to the office door and locked it. Then I shut off all the lights and ducked behind the desk, breathing as quietly as I could. I waited. 1 minute. Then 5. Nothing. Slowly, I peeked out from the side of the counter. The figure was gone. The door to room 6 had slammed shut. It was as if it never happened. At 2:13 a.m. she came again. The housekeeper. I didn't need to see her. I knew it was her from the creaking floorboards, the way the temperature plummeted, the soft humming leaking under the doorframe. This time she didn't knock. She just stood there for what felt like an hour. When the humming stopped, I knew she was gone. That should have been the end of it. But around 3:30 a.m. something scratched at the back door. Not knocked. Scratched. Like long nails dragging against the wood. I froze in place, the phone in my hand, heart pounding. There was no rule about the back door. But I wasn't about to open it. The scratching stopped. Then I heard whispering. My name. Over and over. Blake. 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 The voice was thin and cold and wrong. It sounded like it was being funneled through a drain pipe. Like someone mimicking human speech but not quite understanding it. Then silence. Until I heard the sound of a key turning in the back lock. Click. The doorknob jiggled. I grabbed the heavy desk chair and wedged it against the door. Then I sat there, wide-eyed, hand gripping the motel phone like it was a lifeline. By 4:01 a.m. it all stopped. The cold lifted. The lights stabilized. I waited until sunrise before moving an inch. When Mr. Hayward arrived just before noon, I confronted him. I demanded answers. There's something in room 6, I said. I saw it. His face didn't change. No surprise, no fear. That room is a passage, he said simply. Sometimes things try to come through. A passage to where? I asked. His eyes lingered on mine. You don't want to know. I wanted to leave. I should have. Every instinct in my body screamed to pack my things and run as far from this place as possible. But then he added, most don't make it past night 2. That stopped me. What do you mean? They usually break a rule. Or the motel chooses them. Chooses them for what? He smiled faintly. You're still alive, aren't you? That means something. It likes you. I didn't sleep that day either. But when night 3 came, I was behind the desk again. The rules were still taped to the wall. And new questions burned inside me. Who built this motel? What is behind room 6? And what happens if I break the rules? On purpose. On the 3rd night, I decided to test a rule. Not because I was brave. Not even because I wanted answers. But because curiosity was starting to override fear. And fear, oddly enough, had become familiar, like an old wound I kept pressing just to feel something. The rule I chose was simple. Rule 6, never feed the cat. Sounded absurd. Like a joke thrown in among the more serious ones to test my attention. But nothing in this place was a joke. And besides, I hadn't seen a cat. Not once. Still, I went to the mini fridge in the back office and pulled out a packet of cold ham I'd brought from town. I left a slice on a paper plate near the main entrance just after midnight. Then I sat behind the desk and waited. At 12:14 a.m., the motel shifted. It was subtle, like the building breathed in. The walls creaked inward and the fluorescent lights flickered. I looked up. The cat was there. Jet black, with fur so dense it seemed to absorb the light around it. It stood perfectly still just beyond the glass door, eyes like molten gold. No reflection. No sound. It didn't look at the food. It looked directly at me. My pulse ticked upward. I stood slowly, heart pounding, unsure what I expected to happen next. But the cat didn't move. Just stared. Its tail flicked once. Long, slow, deliberate. Then it opened its mouth. Not to meow. To speak. I warned you. The voice was low, ancient, echoing inside my head more than in the air around me. I stumbled backward, knocking over the office chair. When I looked again, the cat was gone. So was the food. And the front door? Open. The night poured in like black water. I slammed the door shut and locked it, every instinct screaming that something else might have slipped inside. But as I turned, I saw nothing. Except the lights were different. Dimmer. Warmer. Like candlelight flickering through unseen windows. The lobby clock was stuck at 12:14. No matter how long I waited, it didn't move. Time had stopped. The air became heavier. Thicker. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Barefoot. Wet. They walked past the lobby door without pause. just a shadow slipping across the frosted glass. A woman's silhouette, dragging something behind her. A bag? A body? My hands trembled. I reached for the phone, but the dial tone was gone. No signal. Just a low hum vibrating through the receiver like static coming alive. I stepped out into the hall. Against every ounce of reason. I had to know. The hallway stretched farther than I remembered. Impossible geometry. The walls seemed to lean inward. The wallpaper shifted, patterns crawling just beneath the surface, like something trapped behind the glue and plaster. Room 3's door stood ajar. The same room that called at 11:47 every night. I approached it slowly, each step echoing louder than the last. My reflection in the brass door handle twisted as I got closer, my face contorting into something I didn't recognize. Inside was darkness. Not just lack of light, but true, absolute blackness. The kind that eats sound and sense and hope. Still I stepped in. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. I was underwater. That's the only way I can describe it. Sound was muffled and my limbs were slow, like I was wading through something heavy. The room didn't have walls. It stretched in every direction, no furniture, no windows, just an infinite black expanse. But in the center was a figure. A woman facing away from me. Her dress was soaked, clinging to her thin frame. Her hair hung in long, wet ropes down her back. She was humming the same lullaby I'd heard before. The same one the housekeeper hummed. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. Then she turned. No eyes. Just empty sockets, dripping something thick and dark. Her mouth was too wide, lips torn at the corners, skin paper white and splitting. She didn't walk, she rushed. Straight at me. I turned and slammed my fists against where the door should have been. Nothing. I screamed, but it was silent in that void. Her hands reached for me, cold, brittle, clawed fingers, and just as they touched my face, I was back in the lobby. On the floor. Gasping. The clock read 2:13 a.m. The slice of ham I'd left for the cat was back on the plate. Untouched. But something had changed. The wallpaper on the far side of the room had peeled back, revealing a patch of wall covered in symbols. Carved into the plaster. Symbols that moved when I wasn't looking directly at them. And the phone rang. Not room 3's. The back office line. I picked it up with a shaking hand. Don't feed the cat, the voice whispered. It remembers. Then click. I dropped the phone. At 3 a.m., the housekeeper passed through the hallway again, this time pushing an empty cart that made no sound at all. She stopped outside the lobby door, her face just barely visible through the frosted glass. She was smiling. That same broken, unblinking smile. And now I saw something else, her name tag. It wasn't there before. It said, manager. She didn't knock. Just placed a key on the floor and kept moving. I opened the door 5 minutes after she disappeared. The key was still there. Cold. Rusted. And tagged with the number 0. There was no room 0 on the map. There shouldn't be a room 0. But now I had its key. The sun began to rise outside. Birds chirped somewhere in the distance, the air returning to its normal, still staleness. I put the key in my pocket and sat down, watching the lobby door. Tomorrow I'd find room 0. Or maybe it would find me. I didn't sleep after that night. Even when the sun came up and bathed the lobby in a pale gold light, the chill in my bones didn't fade. I kept the key to room 0 in my pocket, flipping it between my fingers, hoping it was some sick joke. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe I hallucinated the whole thing. But it was real. The weight of it. The smell of rust on my fingertips. I waited for nightfall like someone waiting for their own execution. At 10 p.m. I brewed coffee I didn't need. At 11 o'clock I checked every lock and security camera. At 11:47 the phone rang from room 3 like clockwork, but I didn't answer. I stared at it until it stopped. Then at 12 a.m., I pulled out the motel blueprint I'd found earlier in the office. I traced each room with a marker. Room 0 wasn't on it. But there was something strange. In the top corner, where the boiler room was supposed to be, there was a square outlined faintly in pencil. No number. Just empty space. As if someone had started to add it and thought better of it. That's when I realized the key didn't match the other room keys. The metal was older. And made. Like it was cut decades ago. It didn't belong to any part of the motel that had been touched by recent time. So I grabbed my flashlight, slipped the key into my pocket, and made my way through the back hallway toward the boiler room. The halls were quieter than usual. The usual creaks, murmurs, and mechanical hums were gone, replaced by a suffocating silence that wrapped around me like a second skin. Even my footsteps sounded muffled, like I was walking in a dream. When I reached the boiler room, the temperature dropped. My breath puffed visibly in front of me, and condensation beaded on the metal door. The kind of cold that sinks into your teeth and bones. I hesitated, then pushed it open. Darkness. The flashlight flickered before settling. Rusted pipes wound across the walls like twisted limbs. A single red light blinked from a breaker box in the corner, barely illuminating the space. And there it was. A door tucked behind the boiler, obscured by years of grime and forgotten things. No number. Just chipped white paint and a tarnished keyhole. My hand trembled as I brought out the key. It slid in like it belonged there. When the lock clicked, the door swung open on its own, slow and deliberate as if something had been waiting behind it. What lay beyond wasn't a room. It was a stairwell, spiraling down into the earth, far deeper than any basement had a right to go. Each step was made of old, damp concrete, slick with something that wasn't quite water. The walls were tight, barely giving me enough room to move without scraping my shoulders. The air was thick, rotten. It smelled like mildew, iron, and something sweet and spoiled. I descended slowly, the light from my flashlight barely cutting through the gloom. Down, further down, until the steps ended. I stepped into a corridor made of stone, primitive and cold. Carvings covered the walls. Not in paint or ink. These were etched in blood. Some fresh, some ancient, all pulsing slightly like veins. And in the center of the corridor stood a door. Black, tall, with a circular emblem carved into it. A cat with no eyes, its mouth open too wide, swallowing its own tail. Beneath it, scrawled in trembling letters, "Do not open." Of course, I didn't listen. I didn't come this far to turn back. I reached for the handle, and it turned without resistance. Inside, the space wasn't dark. It glowed, red, throbbing alive. A massive chamber, circular and domed. The walls were made of writhing flesh, veins pulsing and twitching with a rhythm that didn't match any heartbeat I knew. And in the center? The cat. It was no longer small. It stood 10 feet tall, bones visible through stretched black skin, eyes like wells that pulled light inward. Its mouth hung open in a silent scream, and around it were rows of motel staff. Identical to the housekeeper. Same face. Same smile. Hundreds of them. They turned to me in perfect unison. I froze. Then one stepped forward. She handed me a piece of paper. Just like the one from my first day. More rules. But these were different. These weren't warnings. They were instructions. The guest in room 7 is not a guest. Do not speak to it. At 2:13 a.m., you must open the door to room 0 again. Do not enter. You belong to us now. I dropped the paper and ran. Ran back through the corridor, up the spiral stairs, bursting through the boiler room into the hallway, slamming the door shut behind me. When I looked at my watch, it was 1:59 a.m. I stared at the door to room 0. I could feel something behind it. Waiting. 2:13 a.m. ticked closer. The motel seemed to lean inward, groaning like something waking up. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I was anymore. Then, the door clicked, and opened just a crack. A single yellow eye stared through it. The cat was smiling, and it whispered, "You're almost ready." I shut the door and locked it, but I knew it wouldn't matter. There's no leaving Whispering Pines Motel. Not unless they let you. And I don't think they want to let me go anymore. I didn't open the door again. Not at 2:13 a.m., not the next night, not ever. But it didn't matter. Whatever I'd awakened, whatever I'd seen in that underground chamber, it had already started leaking into the world above. Into me. Into the motel. After that night, the Whispering Pines Motel changed. It was subtle at first. Room numbers started shifting. I'd swear I was walking toward room 4, but when I got there, the number on the door was 8. I'd go to make coffee in the lobby, turn around, and the coffee pot would be full, boiling, though I hadn't even plugged it in. Then the guests started acting strange. Not all of them. Just some. There was the man who checked into room 7. Bald, quiet, polite. But when I looked at the footage later that night, the camera showed the front door opening, and no one entering. Room 7's door still clicked open on its own. The bed shifted like someone was lying in it. Every night after, I avoided room 7. One of the new rules. One night, I caught the housekeeper outside room 3 again. She was humming. Same tune. Same rhythm. When I got closer, she turned and looked straight at me. Her eyes weren't normal. Too wide. Too many pupils. And her smile was stretching, literally stretching. "Almost ready," she whispered. Not quite, but close. I backed away and she didn't follow. Just faded into the darkness like she'd never been there. I stopped sleeping. I couldn't. My dreams were filled with red tunnels and that black door. The cat. Always the cat. watching me, whispering in a language I couldn't understand, until I could. That's when I found the journal. It was hidden beneath the floorboards in the office just behind the desk. Bound in leather, smelling like rot and mildew. The first page simply read, "To whoever takes this job next, leave." The rest was filled with confessions. From someone like me. A past night receptionist. Maybe the one before me, maybe older. He talked about the rules. How they changed sometimes. How following them wasn't about surviving, it was about transforming. The motel wasn't a place. It was a living thing. A gatekeeper. At 2:13 a.m., he wrote, they test your mind. At 3:33 a.m., they test your body. At 4:44 a.m., they take your soul. I checked the logs. Every night since I started, I'd been awake at 2:13 a.m. I'd seen things, heard things, but I didn't know I was being prepared, and I was almost out of time. Then came the final night. I'd already decided to quit. I packed my things. Left a note for the owner, though I doubted anyone ever read those. My shift started at 11 p.m. By 11:01 the phone rang. I didn't answer. By 12 a.m. the lights began to flicker. Standard. By 2:13 a.m. I was standing outside room 0. It opened on its own. The eye was there again. But this time I didn't look away. It blinked. And then the door opened fully. There was no stairwell anymore. Just a void. Pure black. Endless. A sound like breathing came from inside it. A massive breath in and out. Like a beast sleeping beneath the world. And then I stepped inside. I don't know why. My body moved before my mind agreed. I fell. Or floated. Or descended. I don't remember landing, but I remember waking. In the same lobby. Behind the same desk. Everything looked normal. But it wasn't. I turned to look at the mirror behind the check-in desk. My reflection blinked a half-second later than me. My smile didn't feel like mine anymore. I tried to leave the motel, but the road outside had changed. No cars. No stars. Just fog and the outline of the building repeating infinitely behind me. Like I was stuck in a loop. I wasn't the night receptionist anymore. I was part of the motel. Guests still come. Some real. Some not. The rules change every now and then, but I know them by heart. I follow them without thinking. And sometimes, when the fog thins and the moon is high, I see someone like I used to be, new, unsure, flipping through the rule sheet at the front desk. And I smile. Because I know they won't leave either. Not really. They'll join us. Sooner or later. Just like me. Just like you. And if you ever find yourself driving late at night, and you see a flickering neon sign that reads, Vacancy, Whispering Pines Motel? Keep driving. Please. Because once you check in, you never really leave.